So tell me something. If I were to go out to Beverly Hills, I'd be making a mistake?
Yes, a very big mistake. Axel, trust me. You're out of your league.
At long last, the long, and I mean long-awaited Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is finally coming out on Netflix. So, is the heat still on with this franchise that's been going, believe it or not, strong for 40 years? Well, let's take a look. So, in this one, after an attempt on his daughter's life and the disappearance of his friend Billy Rosewood, once again played by Judge Reinhold, Axel Foley, played by the great Eddie Murphy, returns to Beverly Hills to do battle with a group of corrupt cops. Now, right off the bat, when this movie starts, it's clear that Beverly Hills Cop Axel F director Mark Molloy nailed the assignment. In the film's first scene, we see Eddie Murphy's Axel Foley driving around his beloved Detroit, cracking a smile as Glenn Frey's "The Heat Is On" fills the soundtrack. It's not subtle, but it delivers the message loud and clear that for the first time since the second Beverly Hills Cop in 1987, we can legitimately say there's a new Beverly Hills Cop movie out and it kicks ass. Wholeheartedly embracing an R rating with frequent F-bombs and surprisingly hardcore action beats, Molloy's made a movie that will likely prove to be a summer smash for Netflix and will bring Murphy's hardcore fans, of which I am one, a whole lot of joy. In some ways, Axel F is a bit reminiscent of the recent Top Gun Maverick in that our titular character, 30 years later, is still just as reckless and wild as he was in his youth, but not without a price. Axel F is still busting criminals left and right in Detroit, but his career is stalled, and just like Maverick had Iceman watching his back in the last Top Gun, Axel depends on his old partner, Paul Reiser's Jeffrey Friedman, who's now the chief of police in Detroit, to save his ass over and over again. His personal life is also a shambles, with him divorced and estranged from his daughter, Taylor Page's Jane, who works as a defense attorney in Beverly Hills, and is actually much closer to Judge Reinhold's Billy Rosewood. One of the nicest things about the fourth film, though, is that it continues the vibe set in the second movie, where Axel, Billy, and Taggart, once again played by John Ashton, have become lifelong best friends following the first movie. The motivating factor in the sequel is that Billy, with Jane's help, has been investigating dirty cops, only for him to vanish and for Jane to be almost killed. Once Axel's on the case, Taggart, who's now become the chief of police in Beverly Hills, gets forced into the old Ronnie Cox role, where he has to run interference with the politicians as Axel and a younger cop who happens to be Jane's ex-boyfriend, Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Bobby Abbott, do battle on Rodeo Drive. While not especially original, Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is extremely satisfying in that it gives us a ton of time with the characters we already love. Even Bronson Pinchot's Serge shows up, while embracing an old-school aesthetic. Mark Molloy eschews CGI in his action scenes, keeping the carnage practical and in-camera, while Lorne Balfe's soundtrack is done in the vein of Harold Faltermeyer, making liberal use of his old themes and plenty of needle drops from the first two movies. It's also refreshingly R-rated, with Axel dropping F-bomb after F-bomb and going into some fast-talking routines as he tears up Beverly Hills. Sadly, the requisite trip to the strip club from the first two movies is skipped here, perhaps in a sign of the times, I guess, but otherwise this is a pretty legit Beverly Hills Cop movie. While Murphy's show through and through, Judge Reinhold and John Ashton get decently meaty roles, with Rosewood once again the conscientious cop with a moral code, something which bonds him to Axel's daughter, who considers him a mentor and adopted uncle. John Ashton's Taggart is grumpy and more willing to toe the line, but again gets his chance to shine as an ultimately heroic figure, while Pinchot's Serge sows some refreshingly old-school un-PC laughs. Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Taylor Page also proved to be solid new additions, with them both getting the vibe of the franchise. Gordon-Levitt is a bit like Billy in that, for all people underestimate him, he proves to be an exceedingly capable cop, while Page has excellent chemistry with both Murphy and her love interest, Levitt. My only issue with Beverly Hills Cop Axel F is that the villains should be a little more potent. While it's very cool that they cast the legendary Kevin Bacon to play the movie's big red herring, he's lacking the screen time to really establish him as a huge threat, with most of the baddies here just being an assortment of faceless mercenaries and sicarios. Bacon definitely has fun, especially towards the end, but he never comes off as quite as menacing as he could have, although that's also a criticism that, to be honest, could be levied against any of the villains from the other films, who've always been secondary to Axel's shenanigans. While Axel F is good enough that a theatrical release might have made a mint, similar to producer Jerry Bruckheimer's last couple of legacy sequels, Top Gun Maverick and Bad Boys Ride or Die, plenty of people will watch this movie when it hits streaming. If you like the first two Beverly Hills Cop movies, you're going to have a blast with this one, with a loving homage to OG directors Martin Brest and Tony Scott. I had an amazing time from beginning to end, and I give this an easy 8 out of 10.
going back, back to Cali, Cali, Cali.